Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the CBRD meeting, Tuesday, May 7th, 2024. I'd like to recognize that we live, work, and play on the unceded traditional territories of the Comox First Nation. As we do for all of our meetings, I'm going to start with a call to action. This is call to action number 47, topic of reconciliation. And we call upon the federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal governments to repudiate concepts used to justify European sovereignty over Indigenous peoples and lands, such as the doctrine of discovery and terra nullius, and to reform those laws, government policies, and litigation strategies that continue to rely on such concepts. With that, we'll move into the business portion of our meeting. And section C, adoption of the minutes from April 23rd, 2024. That is a motion to move by Director Grant and seconded by Director Morin. Any comments on the minutes from April 23rd? Great. Any opposed to receipt? Okay, motion carries. And I also just want to welcome Chair Cole Hamilton, who's joining us by Zoom. Next section, section F, into the reports. The first report is 2023 financial statements and audit findings report. And I will just turn it over to CA Warren. Sure, let's move receipt. Hillian and Grieve, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Pleased to introduce Tina He, Manager of Financial Operations, who will be introducing the staff report and also introducing our auditor who will be on the call. Tina?
Thank you, James. Through the chair to the directors, I'm pleased to be here today to deliver over Comox Valley Regional District audited financial statement for the year end December 31st, 2023. Corey Vanderhorst, the audit partner from MNP, also on Zoom today. And then he will present the audit finding reports. This one. So in compliance with the Canadian auditing standard, the audited financial statements are being presented by the management for the board. Again, CBRD's external auditor, MNP, will provide a modified opinion subsequent to the board approval of the statements. While the budget and the financial planning reports usually break down by services, the financial statements presented today are prepared on consolidated basis and must be followed the public sector accounting standards. So you will hear a little different than what we usually bring to you with the financial information in the budgeting process. Here's the outline for the presentation today. I'll go over the financial statement highlights. Because we already include a detailed staff reports in the agenda today, I won't go like all the details on the financial statement and the notes sections. We'll only focus on the high level numbers. And then Corey will present the MNP reports. At the end, we'll provide a recommendation. There will be a Q&A section at the end. So starting with the statements of a financial position, you can see the total financial assets has been increased 52 million compared with 2022. The rise mainly comes from the investment and cash line increased by 56.9 million. The total liability increased 37.6 million compared with 2022. And the main reason for the increase is coming from the government transfer received, but not fully spent as December 31st, 2023. Those government transfers are restricted. So we have to put in the liability if we haven't fully spent. And then the net debt was the net debt is the financial liability subtracting from the total financial assets. As of December 31st, 2023, CBRD's net debt position has improved by 14.5 million, mainly due to the last capital assets acquisition in 2023. The net book value of the tangible capital assets increased by 6.3 million compared with last year, which accounts for the 18.8 million capital acquisition, offset by amortization of 12.4 million. Accumulated surplus as of December 31st, 2023 was 312 million, which we will talk more in detail later in this presentation. New for 2023 is the adoption of asset retirement obligation, PSAP 3280. The asset retirement obligation has been included in the total liability on statement of financial position. The total estimate is 33 million, which is including 14.3 million for the asbestos and other hazardous material in buildings and water infrastructure, and 18.8 million in the landfill closure and post-closure cost. The ARO liability will reduce by future spending and adjusted by the change in the regulation, cost estimation for remediation, or the inflation. As of December 31st, 2023, the accumulated surplus was 312 million, which have 224.8 million sitting in the equity and tangible capital assets, and then 74.5 million sitting in the reserve fund, 14 million sitting in the operating surplus, offset by 1.2 million, which is accumulated remeasurement of loss from the investment portfolio. Comes to the statements of operation. The total revenue increased by 5.1 million compared with 2022. The increase is mainly due to the increased requisition and self-service revenue. And total expense increased by 8.9 million, mainly due to the higher personnel cost and the operating cost. The regional organic composting facility opened in April 2023. Also, the landfill closure, post-closure adjustments all contribute to this change. So surplus dropped by 3.7 million compared with 2022. And the annual surplus for 2023 was about 20 million. Now comes to the statements of cash flow. The cash flow statements removes all accounting adjustments such as amortization, accretion cost, and show a detailed account of cash inflow and outflow during the fiscal year 2023. 71 million cash was provided by operating and 3.4 million was provided by financing, net of repayments. Then offsetted by 18.6 million cash usage for capital acquisition and 40.9 million net transfers to the investment. So overall, 15.2 million cash inflow, which bring over cash balance from 49 million in 2022 to 64 million as of December 31st, 2023. Corey Vanderhurst, the audit partner from MNP, is here as introduced or Zoom today and is going to provide an overview of the audit findings. Before I pass things over to Corey, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you, Corey, and his team in MNP for their flexibility and assistance with the year-end process. So, Corey, I hand things over to you.
Thank you, Tina. Hello to the board. Thank you for inviting me here to present today. Am I able to take over the screen or my presentation?
Yes, Corey, you can take over the screen if you'd like.
Perfect. Thank you. There we go. I think you can see my first slide now.
Yes, go ahead, Corey.
Okay, thank you. And thank you very much, Tina, for the kind words on the hand up there. A big thank you to Tina and Lucy and the rest of the finance team and staff throughout the region district this year, helping us go through the audit process. A little bit of extra lifting this year around that asset retirement obligation piece. So we really appreciate your staff's flexibility and working through that. It was a big lift for your team. So I have a couple slides to talk about just the audit findings, the audit results. We are providing a clean audit opinion. So an unmodified opinion. We are satisfied that the financial statements that Tina just went through there are prepared accurately in all material respects in accordance with public sector accounting standards. The last steps are board approval of the financial statements here today and a couple other minor items that we're wrapping up this morning to be able to get an audit report into your hands and to get the audit filed. When we're doing our audit process, a couple key highlights there. One, that we do look at the controls that are in place at the regional district. Make sure you're getting accurate financial reporting. We look at how they're designed, how are they implemented. We don't necessarily test the effectiveness of the controls. Our audit approach is to focus instead more on the year-end balances and make sure that the numbers in those financial statements are accurate. We sample transactions throughout the year to form our audit opinion. And again, a big thank you to staff for going through the audit process with us again this year. We are ready to sign off on the audit. An important piece of our audit is the second bullet there, the materiality number. So that is the number that drives our amount of audit testing. If there's anything that we disagree with staff on, I can't give you a clean audit opinion if it's larger than that amount. We look at every transaction over that $4.2 million number, and then we sample small transactions that are smaller in value than that. And that's calculated as roughly 4 to 5% of your annual revenues. That's how we calculate that number. No limitations placed on the performance of our audit. We had access to all the documents we wanted to see, all the people we wanted to talk to in interviews. So a big thank you again. We didn't find anything unusual to bring to the board's attention. No evidence of conflict of interest or unusual related party transactions. A reminder that we're not specifically looking for fraud or unusual things, but if something came to our attention, it would be required to report it to the board, and at that point, I'd of course ask for in camera, but nothing to bring to the board's attention today. I will confirm our independence. So from January 1st, 2023, all the way through to today, May 7th, we didn't do any other projects with the regional district that would impair my ability to give you an independent audit opinion. And I'll stop there and I'll turn off the screen share, but I'll turn it back to staff. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Corey. Nice to see you again. Thanks to you on behalf of the board, and of course to Lucy and Tina for all the work that has gone into all of this. Open it up to the board for any questions. Yes, we have Director Grieve. Please go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, Corey, when can we get some of those M&P mugs? We went around for the house here.
I'll have to see what the marketing department sits just outside my office. I will see what I can wrangle up. Thank you, Director.
Great answer, Corey. Director McCollum.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, just a question on the materiality piece, and I have a sense of how the 4.2 million is picked, but given the way that a regional district is structured and how things are compartmentalized, it seems like the materiality number is very high. And I'm wondering if other regional districts, because I mean, we are such unique entities, ever look at a different way of determining that materiality number. And then my second question is, how many transactions were over 4.2 million in the audit?
Great. Maybe I'll thank you, Director. I'll tackle the second one. There's not that many when you think about it. The tax requisition will be large, the large government grants for the sewer projects, and then the sewer capital spending would have been the main area that are over that $4.2 million mark. Those are usually the grants and the capital of the place we're spending the time and attention there. But your first question is a great one too, with the nature of your service areas and your electoral areas and the smaller pots of money that are being managed. $4.2 million. Some of them would, and many of them would be under that, but overall they add up together. So we are sampling underneath. We are making sure that we're looking at those smaller transactions going through in the expenses, in the revenue, specifically in utility billing, water billing, and some of those things. But it is a really good question, and I know that the regional districts do have some sessions and things where the finance staff get together and talk about that specific issue, that there's a higher degree of scrutiny on individual areas than what the auditor can get to in the financial statement audit.
Yeah, thanks for that context. I'm not completely clear on, where it lies with, our professionals that are in-house and if there's a role for the board to play, but I do feel that 4.2 million is a pretty high number for materiality, just given the way that we're structured. So yeah, I don't know, maybe that's a conversation for further down the road. And then I just had a general question as to whether or not there was any recommendations that came out of the audit for management in general that weren't shared in the report, maybe around risk management or processes. I know those things sometimes fall out of the process, and if there's anything you had to share.
Thank you. No specific items that we brought forward around risk management and internal controls. You know, one of the big focuses this year was that asset retirement obligation calculation. We spent a lot of time with staff on the information going into it, estimates of when remediation would happen, where's the source of information, and there was a consulting firm brought in as well to assist staff pulling it together. So that was a really big focus. It's a big number to put on your financial statements as a liability. And any conversations around financial processes were sort of dominated by that asset retirement obligation piece this year.
Any other questions? Okay. Oh, I do see one. Director Brown.
I just wanted to mention the increase in investments of $41 million, which is awesome. If staff have comments on that, happy to hear about that. But my question for Corey, I guess, is around the statement of change in net debt, so financial assets to liabilities. And that a ratio of less than 1 means future revenues are required to pay for past transactions. And I assume that every municipality and regional district is in this position of being less than 1 because we're all trying to catch up to our infrastructure costs. But so I'm curious if you've ever seen a municipality or a regional district at 1 or more.
Thank you, Director. It's a great question. Yes, and we definitely do have communities that we work with that are in a net financial asset position. Regional districts specifically, with the asset retirement obligation, with the large debt that is currently being carried, right? The regional district portion of 77 million is not unusual to see them in the net debt position in the below 1. Because of the nature of the extra liabilities, specifically landfill generates a large liability. I know it's a big piece of that $33 million. So that's sort of what we've been seeing this year. Regional districts tending to be in the net debt or as opposed to some of the other communities being in a net financial asset position. Even as you said, with 40 million put into investments to make sure you're earning the best rate of return, there are still large long-term liabilities on your balance sheet.
Lucy.
Yeah, just I'll go back to the first question and around investments. So you see on the report, and we've made progress down that road with getting our investment policy in place and then moving forward with some purchases of GICs. And that's where we're at right now. And you're likely all aware that as part of that investment policy, there's a requirement for us to be back in front of you with reporting. And our intent is to do that in June. So when we come back in June, we imagine that would be the place that we can bring you some more information on. So what have we invested in, and what kind of returns are we getting? And of course, very important is, are we aligned with the policies? Are we aligned with the requirements of that policy? And that's what's super important about having that policy in place. So we'll bring you all that. We still need to be doing some work around that. And we do want to be also formulating a greater strategy over where we want to go. So hopefully we're ready with those all those pieces as we come forward in June. Okay.
All right, looking around the table, I don't see any other lights on. We have a motion for a seat on the table. Anyone opposed to receive this report? Okay, motion carries. All right, recommendation has been moved that the audited financial statements of the Comox Valley Regional District for the year ending December 31st, 2023 be approved. That was recommended by or motioned by Director Hillian, seconded by Director Grant. Any further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carried. All right, thanks again, Corey and Tina and Lucy for that. Corey, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. No, he's gone already. Okay. That was fast. Well done. Well done. All right, thanks. All right, moving on to item number 2 or in the report section. This is a report dated May 2nd regarding the Comox First Nation request for financial support towards the upcoming National Indigenous Peoples Day. Great. Moved by Director Greaves, seconded by Director Brown. Thank you. And over to staff, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kevin Duville, our Manager of Financial Planning, will be introducing this staff report and available for any questions. Kevin.
Thank you very much, James. Through the chair to the directors, good afternoon. So yes, as the intro suggested, this report is bringing forward a request for a contribution to the Comox First Nation for their upcoming National Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations, which will be held on Friday, June the 21st this year. A very similar ask that what was brought forward and approved by the board last year. And we are also proposing that, as like last year, that we fund this request out of our various heritage conservation services. The one proviso I'll put to that, as you'll note, is currently areas B and C have some reserves available that we could access to fund their portion of this request. Unfortunately, area A is a little bit tapped, and we just actually introduced the creation of some reserves for a number of our heritage conservation services this year. So that isn't currently an option for electoral area A. So we have proposed a very short-term borrowing of funds from our general admin service, as we've outlined in the report. And if the board were to approve that, those funds would then have to be repaid as part of the 25 financial plan process. And what would have to occur is we would actually fully repay the amount borrowed plus whatever interest our general admin service would have normally earned if those funds had retained in the reserve for that service. So I think the rest of the report's pretty straightforward. More than happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Kevin. Question, Director Grieve.
Nice to have you back, Kevin.
Thank you.
Refresh my memory. What's the tax requisition on this? Is it like 3 cents on the 1,000 or something? It's not very much, is it?
Correct. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but these are very small services that we maintain. And of course, there's the 5 distinct heritage conservation services for areas B, C, and then of course the 3 portions of A for Bain, Sound, Horn.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So yeah, collectively, we requisition a very small amount annually and typically reserve those for some modest kind of heritage related requests, but also to support archive work and those kinds of things. And we're also looking at how we can support planning in the building of heritage registries and those kinds of initiatives.
The reason I ask is because this seems to become a reoccurring ask. And I'm just maybe in the next budget cycle, we can accommodate it by upping our requisition just a tad. Because it's not going to make a pinch of difference on anybody's taxes, but it is important, I think, to support. I don't know about director from area A, but I'm just wondering, perhaps rather than going into that, another thing too, I guess to preface this, is this the first time we've actually used that ability to borrow off another service? I don't recall us ever going down this road.
Okay. Through the chair to the directors, certainly in my history with the organization, we have not, but that option is there. Obviously, as regional districts, we are very cautioned to look at how we would potentially do interfund or inter-service borrowing, because you obviously want to make sure that you're respecting the fact that many of our services are funded by a very different mix of taxpayers. And so we have to kind of certainly keep that in mind. But with the way we've kind of phrased or positioned this. It's for a very short period of time. Currently, as I illustrated in the report, there are sufficient funds within the future expenditure reserve for
I
general
know.
admin, and we're not going to be using those dollars imminently. And as long as we're fully repaying those with interest, then we've really just kind of restored back, the funds in that service.
It begs the question, if Director Hardy is amenable to this, why don't we just cover the 20 grand between us and Daniel can make it up next year or whatever, rather than actually going through this formal process? Because I'm not entirely convinced that I want to go down this slope of, boring between services. We've never done it in the past. I've been here 15 years, so I don't know how Director Hardy feels about that, but we do have the money available. And if it's going to become a regular thing, then we just factor it in. Tomorrow, we're going to be meeting, the electoral areas are meeting to go through our community grants, which is a considerable amount of money we give them grant and aid. And just to make it clear to our municipal partners out there, this money is coming strictly from the electoral areas anyway. So,
Correct.
So I'll leave it at that and see if anybody wants to rise to the debate.
I'm going to give CAO Warren a chance to comment on this.
Yeah, certainly this is up to the board, the electoral area directors as participants in that service. And if you want to take that approach of funding from the area B and C services, then that's your prerogative. The recommendation laid out and that application of funds from A, B, and C does provide the equitable, 1/3 contribution from each. So I did also want to mention, you made reference to the Rural Community Grant Fund allocation process that's happening on Thursday. It's an Electoral Area Services Committee meeting. The CBRD received another request for funding for another Comox National Indigenous Peoples Day celebration event. That request is being considered and put forward through the rural community grants process. It's not something sanctioned by Chief and Council, but it is something that will be considered on Thursday as part of that rural community grant process.
Should follow up?
Fairly quick follow-up. Just regarding the grant and aid, we cannot give money to other local governments, but we can give money to nonprofits. So, but of course, the Heritage Conservation Service doesn't have that requirement. It's strictly discretionary, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This is slightly awkward item for me. Firstly, because it is coming before the board, before coming to ESC. I think we would have had much more thoughtful discussion had this item been put on the agenda at ESC. It's not unfortunate I don't have money into my heritage budget. Every year I make a really big effort to only leave reserves in any of the services in Area A where there's a clear purpose. So I spend down the heritage budget based on that. So, or I always do my best anyways. In this case, I do remember that I drew it down to pretty much zero, not anticipating this would come before the board today. And yeah, awkward because we do have the community grants coming up in a couple of days. And even this weekend, I've been caught in a conversation, not caught, but I've been part of a conversation around the Denman bus probably supporting the alternate event at KFN. And I was going to bring up on Thursday potential financial support for that coming out of one of my functions. So I guess, yeah, I don't like to go into debt, and exactly like Dr. Grief said, I'm just wondering if we should just refer this report to the areas for our Thursday meeting, and then we can look at our contribution to KFN's activity comprehensively and looking at it in the context of our rural grants. And then since it is before the board, Dr. Grieve made the comment that we're the only ones contributing, but I'd be curious to know if Cumberland, Comox, and Courtney are planning also associated contributions to this event, or if it's just the rural areas.
Director Hillian.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, Courtney approved, I think it was $25,000 to this at our last meeting. The point I wanted to bring up was that we have a subsequent request on our agenda tomorrow for a second event that is taking place that day called Comox Rocks. And I don't know how we're going to deal with that. It's a little bit confusing to say the least. I don't know if that subsequent request will also come to this table. Thank.
Director Brown?
I just want to mention that Cumberland also contributed.
Director Grant?
We did not contribute. We gave out about over $200,000 in grants and aid for a town that doesn't give any out. That's a lot of money. It comes to about 2.5% of our budget, and we're trying to get our grant and aid policy straightened away. So we declined on this one.
Please go ahead, Director Arbor.
Question to staff, is there a timing issue here, or is staff comfortable if we defer this to our Thursday session and then we'd bring it back to our next board meeting?
I think the interest from Chief and Council was that as soon as possible, there would be a response from the board in respect of this funding request, and that's why we did bring it to the board here. I think we were trying to make it to our last board meeting, but we didn't quite get there, so we came here to this board meeting. So I think there was urgency just to have full understanding from Comox.
Director Reed?
Let's just do it. Of course, you realize that it comes to the greater board for approval anyway, because everybody gets to vote on it.
And Director Arbor?
Thanks, I can move the motion as is, even though I don't really like the process that led to that, but I also don't want to be left out. So, yeah, I'll be prepared to move after receipt, even though I'm still commenting on the process that got us there.
Great, thank you. We do have the motion for receipt on the table. Director Brown, please go ahead.
So just going back to the mention of adding this to budget for next year so that we're not put in this position again. Do we need a motion around that, or is that?
Staff had already thought of that idea. This is the second time, and so we've already made a note to include that for the 2025 budget cycle.
Great, that's terrific. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, anyone opposed to receipt? Motion carries. And Director Arbor, I believe you wanted to make a recommendation. So Director Arbor's moving the recommendation. That's quite lengthy, so I will not read it all out, but its intent is to allocate 20,000 in support of National Indigenous Peoples Day being held on Friday, June 21st. And a seconder? And seconded by Director Brown. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're on to section 3 of the reports. This is the Electoral Area Services Committee reports as of May 6th, just yesterday. So we have a couple of recommendations for discussion. Would someone like to move recommendation number 1? Not this time, but good. Yeah, right into it. Director Grieve moves it. Any seconder? Director Hillian, and any discussion? Okay, this is a vote for the 3 areas. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And recommendation number 2? Grieve and Arbor. And again, any discussion? Go ahead, Director Grieve.
Little background for the board. This refers to an area up at Saratoga Beach that has been going through different iterations of development, dating back to 1996, where the first developer wanted to put in a subdivision. It did proceed at the time, and if you ever go up the end of McClary Avenue, you'll notice there's curbs and gutters, underground wiring, and everything's all overgrown with broom bush and blackberries. So the very first attempt failed when there was a bit of a financial debacle, and people ended up going to jail over it. And then the second batch came forward in about 2007, just before my time. And there was a master development agreement that was drafted for half the property. The other half of the property, my predecessor, Barry Miniker, insisted that we need to do a local area plan before we go any further. Well, that iteration basically languished because of challenges around sewer, because the sewer was the big amenity to the community. And then this is the third time around, and rather than dealing with the existing MDA, the developer wanted to do a phased development agreement, which was quite a bit of a different fish. We discussed it at length, but I'm happy to say that after 17 years, we are now proceeding with a local area plan. So we're moving at the speed of government, folks. So I think that it's good for the fact that now we have an opportunity for the residents to weigh in on what the future was going to look like and how best to deal with growth and how to deliver modern, sustainable, and affordable services to the residents. So I'm looking forward to this process. It's long overdue, and it's definitely what the community wants to see. So I'm happy to be moving forward.
Thanks for those comments. Any other comments? Okay, we'll vote on this. Again, vote of the areas. All those in favor? Any opposed? And motion carries. Great. Okay, we're on to section G of the agenda, bylaws and resolutions. We have one that's a recommendation for the Black Creek Community Center Contribution Service. And this is a bit of housekeeping, just to lay out what we're going to do here, folks. Is the first vote is going to be on rescinding amendment number 3. Then we'll be doing a second reading to correct the omission of electoral area B as a participant in the service, and then voting on third reading. So it's to correct some typos in the original bylaw. Sound good? So so I need a recommendation or someone to move the perfect moving the rescinding, and second but from Grieve, moved by Hillian. Any discussion on this topic? All those in favor? Perfect, motion carries. And now to move to second reading to add electoral area B. Grieve and second by Morin. Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And to third reading. Third. Moved by Grieve, second by Hillian. Again, any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, excellent. So now we're on to another item, number 2. This is a recommendation for bylaw 813. This is about a farm on Minto Road, and it's zoning bylaw change to add cannabis production to the list of permitted uses on the property. This is a vote of the areas. If I could get a mover. Move it. Moved by Grieve, second by Morin. And any discussion? We do have a comment from Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was planning to provide comments on third reading, but I gapped on that. So apologies for those who were watching, expecting us to comment on this one. So this was an application, I think we gave the heads up to the board about 5 months ago around cannabis farm. We had a very full public hearing. I think this room was packed with Courtney residents from the Ridge, mostly in opposition to this particular application, which is on an existing farm that has been in the same hands for a long time. I did want to comment that I did consider many of the comments, especially the ones relating to odor potential. And I think what we found is for contained facilities such as this one, there's some pretty good federal regulations around it. And we also saw a really professional and open approach from the applicants. And a vouching from one neighbor as actually who has known them forever and says they always do things right. So based on that, I'm voting in favor of them proceeding. Thanks.
Thank you for that context. And Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to thank Director Arbor for those comments, particularly given that it's primarily Courtenay residents in the Ridge area that are impacted by this. It's always good for people who attend a public hearing to know what the rationale is for the decision being made. Thanks.
Well said. Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, we have a motion. Again, this is a vote for the areas. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that was our last agenda item. I don't believe there's any new business. Move termination. From Hillian and Grieve. All those in favor? All right, have a great evening, everyone.